question for you. As you know, a week ago during a private conversation,
Uh huh.
as you know, I have taken law classes and have done my research on serial killers. And, can I say that on here? Can I say that word?
You said it now. It don't matter at this point in time.
Okay. Okay. But one of the things that I found that was like the baseline for all these people that are repeat violent offenders is that they were all narcissistic. And when you talk to people who are narcissistic advisors or people who have degrees in psychology, they talk about the different clusters and different types of personalities and these kind of things. But when you start to talk about the spiritual side of it, and can someone be born with this negative energy in them, you kind of lose them a little bit. I know my professors did not want to admit that, but they actually agreed. And my question to everyone is there some type of relation between exactly what everybody's been talking about, spiritual warfare, and this narcissistic behavior that we're seeing? It seems like it's increasing actually in the last past couple of decades or so. I wanted to know, is this some type of form of possession? Everyone is saying it's a mental illness, but it's the fact that they can control it or appear to control it, turn it on and off, extremely deceptive, and they feed off of the life force of everyone around them, particularly those that they target. Is this a spiritual warfare between innocence, good, and this negative energy? Is narcissism a form of negative energy? Could
Yeah,
this
we
be
did.
beyond a mental disorder?
Well, we talked about it. And I guess the best way to break it down with you is this. So if you look at it from this perspective, all right, and we'll take it off of narcissism. Let's just take it to something simple like someone who's a thief, right? If you walk into a
Okay.
store and you steal a piece of candy, let's say you're 9 years old, you steal a piece of candy, eat the candy, walk out of the store. You decided you were going to steal,
Hmm.
right? 2 days
Okay.
later, you come back, you steal another piece of candy. You decided you were going to steal. If you continue to
Okay.
steal, you start to create a habit that attracts spirits that want to live and re-experience that same feeling of being a thief. It's no different than when you
Okay.
see a person, and to break it down to you like this, there's spiritual environments that there's environments that spirits like to, they're attracted to, and they like to live in. Perfect example. You take someone who, everybody knows someone who hoards, right? Take someone who's a hoarder. You walk
Yes.
in their house, there's stuff stacked all over the walls, stuff all over the floor, there's trash everywhere, there's all these different things. From a
Yes.
clinical psychological perspective, they call it hoarding, right? What we've dealt with
Right.
is people who have been hoarders, and we went in and cleaned out that house, and we've literally watched that person come back to that house being cleaned, start coughing and vomiting up phlegm, like literally like globs of phlegm, like a cup full of phlegm.
Mm.
Um,
Wow.
and
Okay.
that's something coming out of that person because whatever spirit that was operating in them that they attracted with that habit of hoarding, over time they attracted that
Hmm.
spirit, that environment. It started creating that environment, keeping that environment comfortable for them. For example, someone who has a gluttonous spirit, a spirit that just loves to eat and it makes them gain weight and all the rest of that. As you start to work
Hmm.
out and you start to lose weight and you start to become slimmer, it's more uncomfortable for that spirit to function and be in your body. So guess what? It says, "Oh, I don't like this place. I'm leaving." Now let's take that and
Hmm.
transpose that back to narcissism. So at some
Okay.
point in time, there is a clinical aspect to it, a psychological aspect to it, and it's probably based on birth order, probably based on how they were treated by their parents, right? But over time,
As well as generational psychological, um, I guess, borderline characteristic traits.
right?
Some stuff seems to be generational. Go ahead.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
But when you start looking at the narcissist, right? I've dealt with a lot of narcissists in my life. I'm pretty good at managing narcissistic personalities that I let into my life, and I'm pretty good at getting rid of them when it's time to get rid of them. The one
Right.
thing that you'll know if you have a narcissist in your life, for one of the things that they're going to do is they're going to always try and exalt themselves above you at some point in time. So if you're in a position of power or you're in a position of influence, that narcissist is going to come in. They're going to ride that coattail, and at some point in time, they're going to make a move to exalt themselves and make themselves bigger and better than you. Um,
Okay.
there's one narcissist that's famous in the Bible, and that would be Lucifer himself. He said he was going to exalt himself on the hill of the Lord, right? He straight up,
Right.
I'm going to be like God, right? So that's one spiritual
Right.
trait. Um,
Okay.
Another thing about narcissists, they everything they touch, for the most part, they either get it through theft. It's not they don't really earn anything; they steal it, and then once they do get their
Okay.
hands on it, they destroy it, right? And a
Right.
lot of murderers are end up being murderers and sociopaths and psychopaths and serial killers end up being narcissists.
Mhm.
Those are another
Right.
traits that I would attribute directly to Lucifer in the Bible. It says the devil came to do nothing but steal, kill, and destroy. So when you're dealing with a narcissist, you're dealing with a person, in my opinion, that's under the influence of probably one of the most powerful spirits you'll ever encounter, which is the Antichrist spirit. Because if you look at their actions and look what it does, and you can see it in their life, you'll watch them go through this cycle over and over and over again, where they get close to someone that's in power, they go for power, they get close to someone and try and usurp their power. Boom, now I'm in power. Now I have what I want. And then they go through this cycle and they just destroy everything around them. You see it in politics all the time. You see it
Yep.
in business. I learned it from business, dealing with
Mhm.
people in business. You see this over and over and over again. So I think there's two components to it. Now, in the medical field, they ignore the spiritual component, right? And you see the results of it. They don't really
Right.
get the best
Right.
results that they could get because they're only addressing one aspect of it, and so therefore they cannot solve the problem because they refuse to address the spiritual aspect. And if you don't address the spiritual
Exactly.
aspect of something, you're going to have a problem. Um, it's no different than a young kid who gets addicted to pornography, right? There's a
Right.
physical aspect of it where that kid is going through puberty and they're coming into their own, and they're curious about their sexuality, right? And then there's the spiritual aspect of them opening themselves up to that pornography and the spirits that come with that pornography. Anybody who's dealt with pornography, and we're all adults here, you start watching one thing, and next thing you know, you're looking at the most disgusting, trifling thing you ever seen in your life. And if you ask yourself the
Right.
question, how in the world did I get to this point where I'm looking at it? It's because you came in partnership with a spirit that's influencing you. Now, some people in the chat, like
Right.
I saw there was a big argument earlier, people don't believe. Man, listen, I can tell you I done been through it because I'm sitting there like, man, what in the world am I looking at? I don't look at no crap like this. And then I get disgusted. I'm like, I ain't looking at this no more, right? And I pull myself back out of it. I'm like, I ain't looking at no pornography. This is crazy. But that's an example of what
Mhm.
happens to people, and that's how they come under those spiritual influences. But it's imagine like the best way to put it is this, to describe it is this: when we have a behavior pattern, it's let's say we got just imagine like the floor in front of you, and there's a bunch of bricks, right? All right, so we grab one brick
Right.
and we put it in place. That's us doing that behavioral pattern. We grab another brick and and eventually we start building a square. And now we got a little temple that we're building. Now we're building an altar to whatever that behavioral pattern is. And so now we keep feeding and keep feeding that altar, keep feeding that altar, and it lights up. And things around in the spirit realm say, "Oh, so you like this? Oh, I'm gonna feel comfortable over there.
Okay.
Let me come over there and hang out with you." And now you're under this
Okay.
influence. And so the same thing happens to a narcissist. It probably happens
Okay.
earlier in life because it's just something that's
Mhm.
generational. And when you talk about generational, like their father was a narcissist, their grandfather was a narcissist. From a spiritual perspective, you're talking about people call it generational curses, but it actually is the sins of the father being passed down to the sons for 4 generations. We see it all the time. That's why,
Mhm.
for me personally, being in the paranormal field, I had to go back and repent and plead the blood of Jesus over the sins of my entire bloodline to stop things from being able to access me and my children and messing with us. But I had to learn that the
Mhm.
hard way. I had to say, okay, well, man, I'm not doing nothing. Why is this happening? No, you got stuff that your grandfather did and your great grandfather did
Mhm.
that you need to go deal with. So um,
Remember
that's
the
my opinion
movie?
on it.
Not the, remember the movie with Denzel Washington? They made a couple of movies around the same time frame. But remember the movie with Denzel Washington where this spirit was following him around and it kept singing, "Time is on my side." Yes,
Yeah,
it is. It kept
fallen.
letting
Yeah.
him. Remember that?
Hmm.
Okay. I really think sometimes when movies are written, they're hitting on stuff that they either know is a matter of fact thing or they suspect can be plausible. It's plausible. Um, I really think the generational aspect of it, could it be something like that as well, like a tag team kind of thing? You know what I mean? Like you saying, people paying for or reliving through what the people before them did. And can it? Is there a chance? If it is there a chance that it can also be like in the movie Fallen, where there's like a tag, like father, then it takes on the son, then it takes on the son. Son. You follow what I'm saying?
No,
Do you think that's possible?
absolutely. I can tell you, there's been things that my father were challenged in. He's been challenged in that I've defeated for our bloodline. There's been things that my father failed at that I confronted and I defeated. So absolutely, without a
Wow.
doubt, there's been things, and I know for a fact these are things that he failed that we had conversations on, and I said, well, we don't have to deal with that anymore because of this. And he looked at me and said, wow, okay, thanks. And
Mm.
so yeah, I absolutely. And the thing about Hollywood, Hollywood gives truth, but it gives perverted truth. Um, and that's
Right.
that's
That's
their
true.
mo. They get perverted truth. So yeah, absolutely. That's definitely how things work. Without a doubt, that's how they
My
work.
elders called it spirit boxes. They used to, there's like, as you know, my people are from the South, and they used to have certain terms for certain things. I'm sure I don't even have to tell you. So the spirit boxes, drinking them spirits, remember that term?
Yep.
Let's see, what's another one? Um, they would talk about if you really got into your roots, you caught the Holy Ghost. Now, this was more of a, I think, tribal thing. Now it's more related to other things, but at that time, when my greats were alive and their greats, it was a little bit different than what it is now as far as association of where, the basis of it. But I think it's still kind of the same when you see people and they say they catch the Holy Ghost. You'll kind of see them doing tribal dances and stuff like that. Just like you can have something positive, you can bring in something negative. Just like you were saying when you were saying that earlier to the other caller, I was like, "Wow, that is like 100%." And you do open yourself up to things even by saying, saying certain things or researching certain things. You attract this energy to you. And I'm wondering, I remember my elders also saying, "Be careful what kind of music you listen to." So it was television, music, alcohol, certain stuff you put in your body because of our bodies being like batteries, energy conductors. Do you agree with that?
I don't know about the whole energy conductor thing. I think if you're talking from a spiritual perspective, my spirituality is based on the Bible, and so we know that um, we start talking about the legal ramifications of doing certain sins. For example, it
Right,
talks about drunkenness and the effects of being a drunkard. It talks about being a
right,
coward and the
right,
effects of being a coward. So to me, it's a if then. If you do this, then you're pretty much guaranteed for this to happen. And in my
okay,
life, I've seen those if then statements play out with people over and over and over again. For example, if you find yourselves amongst wise men, then you shall be wise. It's not the fact that you're wise; it's just you're amongst wise people, so therefore you grow to be wise. And so
right,
that's how I view it. It's a if then statement. Now, as far as human beings being batteries, well, we know from a scientific standpoint, we know we generate our own electricity. We know that the globalists have
right,
plans where they want to use us as batteries. But I'll say this about a lot of the knowledge that people people portray as new age knowledge, new science, new this, new that. It's old knowledge that's been around for a very long time. It's repackaged and it's
I
rolled out in
agree.
a manner that that doesn't honor the creator, God the creator. It's just like, oh, when you hear people say, oh, the universe does blah 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 blah. I'm like, all right, bro, whatever. You can rock with it like that if you want to. But when you really understand, there have things been set in place, things been set in motion, things have been it been intentionally done in a manner in which you can't just say the universe did it. So I'm
Right.
careful with
Right.
that, but I get where you're coming from. But I'm extremely careful with that, and I have to be because in my position, words are leveraged against me to do things. Me saying the wrong thing is
Right.
leveraged against me, literally spiritually
Right.
leveraged against me. So, but I get where you're coming from.
So I remember. Thank you for answering that, by the way. And I remember another. I'm trying to remember all the questions I had for you in that conversation.
Wait,
I
let me interject
remember
one more
one of the
thing for you
questions.
too. Wait, you reminded me of something. This is another narcissistic trait
Okay.
that you guys got to understand.
Okay.
Every narcissist that you're going to be around, they're going to try and force you to come in agreement with them. So, and you said it,
Right.
you're not a narcissist because you didn't try and do it. But if you know a narcissist, because they're gonna always try and loop you and get you to come into agreement with them. And I need you to understand what that
Okay.
agreement signifies. When that narcissist says, "Well, would you agree with this?" and then you say no, then they come back and they rephrase it, "Would you agree with this?" and you say no, and they come back and they rephrase it, "Will you agree with this?" When you start hearing somebody trying to get you to come into agreement with them multiple times, not only are they trying to get you to come in agreement with what they're saying, but they're trying to get you to come in agreement with whatever spirit is operating in them. So, meaning,
Right. Right.
if let's say you with a guy who's a liar, right? Let's say you're dating a guy, he's a notorious liar. I mean, straight up notorious liar, and you know he's lying, but he
Okay.
tries to get you to come in agreement with his lies, right? And you rejected the
Right.
first time, you rejected the second time, you rejected the third time. You know this person is a liar. When you come into agreement with this person, what you are coming to an agreement with is a lie. And so you need to be mindful of that and be
Right.
brave. It takes courage to deal with narcissists because they feed on weak
Yeah.
people. The more courageous you are, they'll turn around and run and they'll
Definitely.
flee. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely. I agree 100%. So I think I want to ask you this before it leaves my mind because I remember this was one of the questions because it kind of led off into what I was trying to talk about with the narcissistic advisor. Um, a question I've had for about, I guess, several years now is how do what do you think? Do you well? First of all, do you think that the courts will ever recognize the spiritual aspect of people who are destroying other people's lives, whether it be through death or financially or spiritually, physically? Because when you're around a narcissist, anyone that's ever dealt with a narcissist knows that you are drained. You feel absolutely depleted if you're not prepared or if you don't have the knowledge to counteract them. And it can have a very negative effect on your health, your financial situation. They destroy lives. So those that they don't kill, they can destroy in other ways, just like what you were saying earlier. How do we go about getting the court system itself to recognize the spiritual aspect of this narcissistic personality disorder as what they have titled it?
I don't know that there's a way of getting the court itself to recognize it. I'm pretty sure they recognize it as a mental disorder, but I don't know if there's a way to get the court to remedy it. I'll say this: you have to look at it from this perspective. God is a God of patterns, right? And so when you see a pattern consistently replaying in your life, so if you're seeing narcissist after narcissist after narcissist coming into your life, don't look at it as it's the worst thing in the world. It's actually an opportunity for you to learn how to deal with that personality type. And typically, what happens is you're going to see a lower level narcissist, then a medium narcissist, then you're going to see an extremely high level narcissist that you need to learn how to deal with. It's nothing more than a challenge for you to grow as a person. And so, if people
Okay.
understand
Okay.
that, then you mitigate the damage that a narcissist can have just in general. You can mitigate it, but
Okay.
you have to
Okay.
understand that it's a challenge. Remember, I said it takes courage to deal with a narcissist, right? Because everything about a
Right.
narcissistic personality is to try and it's either fear that they're going to do you something or fear that if they're not in your life, things aren't going to be well. Like if I'm not around, then you're not going to do well, or I'm going to do you this, right? Um, it's a
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
a test of your courage, is what it really, really is. And
Okay.
if you are a courageous person, two things will happen. Number one, you're going to stop that narcissist before they come into your life because you're going to chin check them coming through the door and establish, okay, bro, I'm not playing this foolishness with you. I don't know who you think you is, where you came from, what train you hopped off, but you need to hop back on that bad boy because I ain't worried about nothing that you got to say. You'll stop it there.
Okay.
Or once you get the courage in that situation, you will just nip it in the bud. Because you'll say, you know what? I don't care what it
Okay.
costs me. It don't matter. Bye. Go on about your business. And there's nothing that they can do.
Okay.
Now, on the back end, they tend to attack and say stuff and try and undermine you. But who cares? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter because my destiny is not in your control. It's not in your hands. You know what I'm saying? It's a combination of what I do and what God hasn't designed for me. So you can play whatever game you want to play. I'm
Okay.
going to keep it moving. And that's really how you deal with it. If anybody came to
Okay.
me and
Okay.
advised me on that, I would say this is how you deal with this narcissist. Now on the court system, I'm not sure how you deal with that in the court system. But if you look
So
at the
from what
traits of
I've
the
learned,
okay,
the only time the court addressed, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. My bad. From what I've learned, from what I can tell, the only time the court addresses it is if somebody has lost their life. That's when it's like the act, one of the acts that the narcissist committed gets addressed. You follow what I'm saying? So it's something extreme that they have done, or if it can be proven, like let's say, like how you were talking about the person that starts stealing at a young age, and then they go on. Let's say they go on to get off into white collar crime or something. You know what I'm saying? There's laws in place to go after that. Particular actions. Um, from what I've learned so far in my journey of exploring this, is as long as that person does not do something that can land them in front of a judge that will throw the book at them for whatever reason, they can go through life destroying people. So the only I haven't seen anyone. I don't know if you've heard of anything other than going through maybe a more like I said, like how you were talking about the Bible and going through a church, and getting help from your fellow church members and stuff like that. I have not heard of any cases where anyone has said, well, I was involved with this narcissist and I lost XYZ because of them. And if it cannot be proven 100% that whatever you lost was somehow done in an illegal manner, you follow what I'm saying? Then they pretty much get away with it. So this is why I was asking you the questions I was asking you earlier. And I'm thank you. You answered a lot of my questions, by the way. You answered my questions. It sounds like the answer is to see them coming a mile away, basically. Um, that's the only. That sounds like that's the best defense that someone can have against these beings. I call them beings because I don't want. I don't want to say anything negative, but I call them beings. That's the best way to, you know. But yeah, but go ahead. Those were my questions that I've had for quite some time now. And like I said, when I reach out to these narcissistic advisors, the second you start talking about, not all of them, but some of them, when you start talking about the spiritual aspect of it, and is this a form of possession? And this, they kind of shy away from you. They stick to the medical terms, and that's pretty much it.
well, they're going to do that because they don't want to do anything to. They're worried about how they'll be viewed by their peers. They're going to do that. But here's a
Right.
to answer your question. I was thinking about this while you were talking. More specifically, the answer, the solution is in the problem itself. If you understand the characteristics of the narcissist, meaning they're going to exalt themselves above you or try and use you until they get to a point to where they're going to exalt themselves above you and make themselves stronger or better. You know they're going to steal. You know they're going to kill. They're going to destroy something. In that process, they're going to have to be one hell of an intelligent person not to make a mistake that can't be leveraged against them. But for me, I
Okay.
personally feel this way about it. It's better to stop that from even coming into your life than to sit there and fight it. So I'd say identify it up front. It's very, very easy to
Okay.
identify. Hold conversation with the person, listen to what they say, and it's easy. A narcissist is all. If you're trying to hold a conversation with a narcissist, they're going to cut you off and they're going to talk about what they want to talk about. And then you try and talk to them again, they're going to
Right.
cut you off.
Right.
They're going to talk about what they want to talk about. That is the introduction of a narcissist. Hey, bro, how was your day today? Well, man, my day was doing good. Blah 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 blah. And then I'm talking about, my son graduated from college and this, and they're going to cut you off. Well, today I went and did this, and it's just the most awkward, disgusting thing, and they do it over and over and over again. And so I have friends who are narcissists that I have told, say, bro, listen, the next time you cut me off when I'm talking about something, partner, me and you not gonna hold no conversation because you being a full-fledged narcissist. I ain't got time for that. My bad, bro. I've been told about that before. Okay, respect me. I'm gonna respect you. You know what I'm saying? You disrespecting my mind right now, and I don't have that problem with them. We hold a whole conversation, and when they start tending to do that, and they start going, I'm like, bro, you doing it again? My bad, bro. My bad. But it takes a certain level of courage to deal with it, and that's all it is to it. They feed on people who don't have courage. So be encouraged,
Right.
and trust me, you'll be able to deal with that a mile away. You'll be like, we're gonna establish some ground rules about this. You know what I'm saying?
I agree 100%. I just wish I had this information years ago. Like I said, I'm just now over the last, because I think I started researching this back in 2015, I believe, is when I started researching this narcissistic personality disorder. And I can tell you, I've learned so much over these last several years, and speaking to people such as yourself, and um, knowledge of it, and being able to recognize those warning signs, like what you were saying, is definitely a lifesaver. Definitely. So I agree with you 100%. I think that was all the questions I had too. I don't know if you had anything else you want to add to that.
Nah, that's it, my love. It's good talking to you. You know you're my girl. I appreciate you.
Well, thank you very much. It was an honor to speak to you, and I thank you so very much for answering that. And I'm glad to speak to someone about that subject matter that will address the spiritual aspect of it. Thank you so very much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, I'll talk to you again soon.
You have a good evening. Bye bye.
All right.